Hello guys, and welcome to the last video of our off-season series, which is about the goalies. And has been an idea that Brad wanted to take a look at, or he was fascinated with. So I have always been also pretty fascinated with goalies, and since the early days of my fantasy hockey career, so to say, I always thought that the goalies are very important, and their contribution towards the overall success or failure of a fantasy team is higher than each of the skaters. So I often drafted goalies early in my early days and have always tried to have a solid foundation in net. So we'll take a look at how did the individual goalies do throughout the years of our league, and then we'll take a look at how we as fantasy teams did by employing these goalies. So first we look at stats from the 8 years of existence of the league since the 2013 the walkout shortened season when we started. So what you see here is a ranking of again, one of my flawless roto ranking systems where I rank basically for each season. I've taken every goalie who played at least 5 games during that season and ranked them according to their contribution to our goalie scoring stats. So in each season there is a top placed goalie, like for instance you see here in 2013 the best goalie was Bobrovsky, Rask was 5th, and so on and so on. So we do that for every year, for each year, and at the end we look to rank all the goalies at the average placement. So the lowest average, the better. And as you see, Tuukka Rask is the best, or according to this metric, is the best goalie in the leagues during the league's existence. Also, again, one more thing to qualify for these particular standings or ranking, a goaltender must have played at least 5 seasons. So this is a quota I put in. After that we will look into the more younger goalies who have come up more recently, so you know that here they are not shown. Like for example, rookie goalies like Shesterkin, they are not here because they have only 1 season of games in the NHL. And on the right here you see the number of seasons that the goalies have played, and how many times they have been in the top 10. And also where you see lower standings like red numbers, like in Fleury's case here in Price, it's either because they were injured or they didn't play very many games due to being relegated to a backup, like in the case with Fleury in 2017. He was overtaken on the depth chart by Matt Murray. So this system accounts for the loss of starts, so it punishes players or goalies for lack of playing time, and also weights in the ratio stats and the shutouts and everything. So you can take a look around. We'll stroll through the 3 parts of this spreadsheet. Basically 45 goalies qualified according to these criteria I already described, and we will scroll through the 3 parts of the 45 long list. But some interesting things here, apart from Rask being pretty clearly the top goalie throughout. Of course, if you look at the trends, you see Vasilevsky here. He didn't have awful 2 seasons to start. He just was the backup, so he was brought along slowly. And you see that over the last 3 seasons, he's clearly the best goaltender. So this is not indicative of their current ranking. As I said, we will try to take a look at their current rankings towards the end of the video. Anyway, you see, for example, for me at least, it was interesting that Fleury, I think we have been, and he has been underrated by many fans and observers or fantasy hockey players, and he has been elite for most of his career, apart from his last year in Pittsburgh. He has been pretty good. And Ben Bishop, for his reputation of always being hurt, I don't see that. I mean, he has a couple of down seasons, but he has been really excellent throughout. And Freddie Andersen, he is the best goalie who has never cracked the top 10. So he has been incredibly consistent, although never on the top-notch tier of goaltenders. And you see some here like Crawford, Lundqvist, and Quick. They are clearly in decline when looking at their stats, especially towards the last 2 seasons. And maybe Carey Price for me is a bit overhyped, overrated, because he isn't the best goalie according to any metric I've put together. And yeah, you see here, these are the top 15. And on the next slide, these are the middle ones, the mushy middle, the average ones, headed by Matt Murray, who doesn't crack the top tier. And also here, some pretty good goaltenders like Grubauer, for example. He's pretty consistent, but never top notch. And many of those goalies here in the middle of the pack have made at least one appearance in the top 10. So they have had at least one excellent season. Like, for example, Lehner here and Kemper. They have had their struggles. They have been around throughout the league's existence, but have found it hard to establish themselves. And now both of them seems to have established themselves finally. And as you will see in the next slide, it can take quite a long to establish oneself as a goaltender. And it goes without saying here that the goalies are notoriously hard to predict, so I don't think any of these stats and cards will tell us what will happen next, or will tell us if a goalie is good or bad, because it's a very, very hard thing to judge. You see another couple of decliners here in Anderson and Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider was excellent in the start of our league, so he was one of the best goaltenders in the first half of the league, and then boom, he just fell off a cliff. I don't know. And Talbot here is one of the more unpredictable ones, and I foresee he continues to be one. And towards the latter part of the ranking, so the bad or the more bad goaltenders, here for me notable is Jimmy Howard, who had this one excellent season in our first year and then has been pretty below average throughout, so this was his career year. As the same with Grice, he has been basically a career backup and had one great year in 2019 in the Islanders system, where every goaltender thrives. And Reimer also, similar to Howard, he has basically not been an above average goaltender for most of his career. I think Markstrom here is one interesting case because he ranks according to this average very low, but he's definitely on the upward trends, and his development curve is definitely one that was a late boomer, as Jay can tell you his story in details, maybe. Likely. And you see the Hutchinson bringing up the rear, as he has made enough appearance in 5 seasons to make the cut, but he has never been an NHL staple, so to say. So these are the goaltenders that have featured throughout the league's existence. Again, many young goaltenders are up and coming, so they have like 1 or 2 or 0 years of experience yet. So they will make an impact, but we are looking just at the stats here. So this is not a picture of the future, more of the past. So basically, how did we do? So we saw who were the better goaltenders and who were the average ones and who were the not so good ones. But how did we do as teams? So this next graph or table or color-coded spreadsheet shows that the Linköpings were the best team in the league, or have been the best team in the league according to their goalie stats. And these stats here are strictly the Roto stats from our league standings, end of the league standings for each for each year. Only the goaltending categories. And you see that Brad's team is pretty far ahead, so they are comfortably in the lead in this category. And given the fact that Brad is a scout who specializes in scouting young goalies, I think he would have to eat a lot of crow if he one day doesn't lead these standings. But I don't foresee this happening. He has been pretty solid. As you see, the color coding here is basically the white is average, green is above average or best, and the red is as more red is the worse it is. So you see that Linköpings are the only team that has had no below average season. Yeah, I think it was right. And all the other teams have had some issues along the way. And on the other side of the spectrum, the Blazers, they haven't had a single above average season. So they started well. Actually, I have here, I can go through basically who employed which goalie, but I didn't want to go into that deep and make the video that long. But for example, Linköpings employed the first 3 years they were carried by Tuukka Rask and Semyon Varlamov. And then Freddie Andersen came up because he was their draft pick. And basically Andersen took over until last season when he was traded away, and basically Merzlikins, Shesterkin, and Saros, the next generation, took over. So this is the timeline of Linköping's goaltenders. And again on the other end, so for the Blazers, they started with Niemi and Neuwirth in the first 2 years, and this was pretty okay, I guess, if you look at the stats. But then they had again Niemi and Harding, Jimmy Howard, Keith Kincaid. Kincaid is maybe their most prominent goalie, which tells you why they are so bad. So he has featured like in 4 or 5 years. He's been in their goalie crew, which included again Neuwirth on a couple of occasions, Stalock, Bernier, Louis Domingue, James Reimer, David Riddick, and at the end they have now Mackenzie Blackwood and Kyle Peterson, which for at least sounds promising for the future. But you see just a lot of names that were on the last list with the worst goaltenders throughout the league's existence. So not an amazing achievement by Greg and his Kamloops team. And for all the other teams, I can go through teams. If someone is interested, I can send you the Excel spreadsheet, because it's really a lot of names. uh, and you can look at it for yourself, and maybe you look at your team to remind yourself what has been and who have you been through. And another interesting thing is to look at how these rankings on the goalie stats, how it correlates with the overall ranks in the standings according to points, regular season points. And as you see, the top three teams are the top three teams, also according to the overall standings, although a little bit mixed up. And also from the top six teams in this rank, all of them are within the top eight of the overall league standings as of the recording of this video. The outliners in this test, or in this regard, the Orlando Solar Bears, and formerly the Macon Whoopie, have been seriously let down by their skaters, because they have a pretty decent goalie record and rank 8, but are overall 20th. So they're to make the math work, their skaters must be like 26th or 28th on average out of 20 teams. So that speaks volumes about the contribution they got from their skaters. And on the other end are the Tigers and the Ice Dice, who have been carried by their skater stats, because their goaltenders have been below average for both teams. But the Tigers and the Ice Dice rank 4th and 5th in the overall standings respectively. So this is almost completely based on their strong skater categories. And overall, I think the correlation is pretty strong, which is not, of course, surprising, given that the goaltending categories are 4 out of the 14 overall categories. So it makes sense that nearly 1/3 of the scoring stats matter when you look at the overall standings. Another interesting question is how many goalies each team drafted. So if you think to be good at goaltending you have to draft a lot of goaltenders, is it true? Well, it kind of is, or at least it seems like this, because the top two teams here are also the top two teams in terms of how many goalies they have drafted. But it's not necessarily the case, because if you look at the Wanderers in the middle of the table, they only ever drafted 3 goalies, the most successful of which in terms of panning out was, I think, Tristan Jarry. And Tristan Jarry was traded from them long ago, and long before he ever reached the NHL. So it's not a strong correlation here, and because the numbers here are all over the place. And many of the goalies that were drafted didn't actually live to play for their drafting team, because naturally they have a longer, not naturally, but usually they have a longer development curve. So this is an interesting stat. Again, if you want to look at who are the goalies you drafted in the league history spreadsheet, the full draft list is there. You can filter it out easily and filter out only the goalies. And another thing, throughout the history of the league, who has employed the least goalies? So who has used the least number of goalies overall? So who has been the most consistent or loyal? And speaking of loyalty, it's not surprised that the top team here is the Jackalopes, and they have only employed throughout the 8 seasons of the league only 8 goalies. So basically they started with the Holtby Bishop tandem, which was excellent, as you see the covers here. For the first 3 years, Holby was around for the full 4 years, and these were also the best years of Holby's career, especially in 15-16. And then Holby's contract ran out, and Max went with a crew of internally developed goaltenders, uh, which were these ones. So Mrazek, Grubauer, and Jimmy Howard. About Jimmy Howard, I'm not sure if I don't think he drafted. He maybe drafted him, but he was later than a prospect. But anyway, look at this consistency here, and Max has been very loyal to the tandem of these three, not the tandem, but the group of these three, and he has managed to contribute to proving this equation to be mathematically correct. So he doesn't only contribute to the fantasy community, but also to the mathematics community, and everyone can use this now. It's a common knowledge. And the other teams who with least goaltenders used were the Royals and the Linköpings. I mentioned at least which were the goaltenders for Brad's teams, and for the Royals, they started with Brizgalov in net and Dubnik. Dubnik stuck around for 3 years. They had Bernier then, and since Bernier left at the end of the 2015 year, they promoted John Gibson from within, and Gibson has been basically the main guy since then, and Ranta has been around for the last 3 seasons. So you see a fairly similar pattern here for all three of those teams who use the least number of goaltenders, that around the end of the first of the veteran contracts from the inaugural veteran draft, so basically around year 3 or year 4 of the league, they managed to promote goaltenders from within, which basically took over as the main starter, or in Max's case, as the group of starters who provide average results, to really carry, so to say, the team. And of course, always looking at both sides of the story, who are the teams who use the most goalies. So in third place were the Scouts and the Blazers. So you see already somewhat of a trend that's using a lot of goaltenders is maybe not the best recipe for success. I talked about who the Blazers used. The Scouts, they went through, started with Lehtonen, who was around for 2-3 years. Even Marty Brodeur was there still, and then he had some Hiller, Reimer, Grais, Pavelek, Corey Schneider was here, and he stuck for a couple of years, but not his better years, unfortunately for Andrew. And then in the last few seasons, he went through Hutton, Ullmark, Koskinen, Mike Smith, and basically he's still with Koskinen and Ullmark for this coming season. So, not the best of luck for Andrew in terms of goaltending, but he has seemingly been improving in the last few years. And budging the trend are the Ramparts, who are actually one of, as you obviously see, have been one of the better teams in terms of goaltenders, but have used a lot of them, and this is mostly because in the first years they used to trade a lot, and the last 2 years since Vince took over, they have been in rebuild, so he he basically hoarded goaltenders in the last auction draft, and but basically their good stats are because they had Corey Schneider for his good years in the beginning, and then developed from within Vasilevsky. And Hellebuck has featured here for a couple of seasons, but I don't know if Hellebuck was drafted by the Ramparts or he was traded in and then traded out of the team. But basically, having had both Vasilevsky and Hellebuck definitely helped the Ramparts in the last 4 or 5 years of the league. So basically, if you use a lot of goaltenders, it doesn't mean you are bad. But speaking of using a lot of goaltenders, I don't know if anyone would be surprised that the team who use the most are the Ghosts. And this is basically who went through the Ghosts in order of appearance. And they have been trending. So to be fair, the Ghosts are definitely trending in the right direction, because they are now set for the next season with a tandem of Vasilevsky and Samsonov, which seems promising to say the least. And as you see, you can see them in you can see it in the trend of their recent years. So maybe the years of huge goalie turnarounds are behind the Ghosts. But you see, if Jay manages to restrain himself from making trades for the sake of trading, maybe he will be moving up in these charts in a couple of years' time. So I think that's about it for the teams. Like I said, if anyone wants more details and more spreadsheets, just let me know. I can send it to you by mail. And because the tier lists are very popular around the internet, I decided, well, let's agree on something. And of course, by agree, I mean not agree, but let's put together a tier list looking ahead, like a preview for the 2021 season, and ranking not only the based on stats, but based on also potential and the teams which the goalies are. So starting with the S tier, I have here Vasilevsky and Hellebuck, and on the right side I have probably, so on the left side are more or less sure things, of course, given the disclaimer that there are no sure things with goaltenders. And on the right, guys who should fall into this particular tier, but have something. Like for example, here I've put Rask and Bishop here because their stats are elite or have been elite. But Rask is a bit questionable if he has more than 1 year left, or if he's gonna stick around past this coming season. And Bishop, he's already injured, so it's a big question mark again. And Hart and Shesterkin here, so the color code here, blue or bluish here on the right are the veterans, and the green are the up and coming youngsters. So they have the potential, but are not again a sure thing. So these are the S tier guys, according to my opinion. So feel free to disagree. The next tier is the A tier. Price, Freddie Anderson is here. Bobrovsky and Binnington are in orangey, reddish color, because I think they are more risky. Bobrovsky because he is very inconsistent, but his history shows that he can bounce back, and he's not old. And Binnington, he's, for my taste, he has a bit too short of a track record still to be considered a sure thing, but he has been excellent so far. And on the probably side, we have Kemper, because he's been excellent, but his career numbers don't back this level of excellence. And the young guys up and coming for me, Merzlikins, Blackwood, and Demko, who should be in this 8 year, like for the for the next foreseeable future. On the B tier, which are good goaltenders, so solid, I have Gibson, who according to talent only should be at least an A for me, but he's playing on an Anaheim team, which I don't think is ready for rising up. So they're basically bottoming out now. Leonard is here, but he could move up if he's the actual starter and gets the one shares of start for a strong Vegas team. Markstrom is here, and Varlamov, who is in red because he's I think dependent on the as the time he gets as an Islanders goaltender. Sorokin is not here because he hasn't played an NHL game yet, but this is also another thing which is very important for Varlamov's ranking. If he starts losing starts to Sorokin right away. By the way, the underlined here, like Price and Markstrom, you see, the underlined names will be available in the coming auction, which we'll be discussing on shortly. On the right side, probably you see Grubauer, Francouz. One of them will be a B, whoever gets more starts for Colorado this season, and the other one will be a C. If they split evenly, they likely both were B minus. And we see here the young guys, or not so young in case of Saros, but Saros, Jari, Samsonov, and Petersen. Jari, Samsonov, and Petersen, I don't think are worse, for example, than Blackwood in terms of talent, but I see them all in teams who are either in Pittsburgh and Washington's case going down, on in King's case going up, but not sure how fast and how soon they will. On the C tier, Halak, Murray, Holtby, Allen. These are good goaltenders, but either good backups on a strong team, or starters on or timeshare goaltenders on a average team, or so basically these are good options, but not on the level of the above. And here it's interesting that I've demoted Fleury and Rine to C because their stats have been, their history and name suggests they should be higher, but I think they're both losing their starting jobs this season, and they are definitely on their way down. And Talbot here is, I think, a wild card, as he has been for most of the last few seasons. He can easily go up, but he would maybe even easily even more easily go down. And so you can draft him at your own risk, not draft but auction for him. And the D tier is already goalies who can be useful in limited starts, and they're mostly backups or timeshare goalies. And here you see already a lot of them will be available at the auction. On the probably side, I've demoted Quick here because I think he's really regressed lately. Grice is here because not of his history, but because he went to Detroit, which doesn't bode well for his stats. Stalock is dependent on Talbot, what happens. Dubnik and Jones are both here, so San Jose, I don't think their outlook, especially for their goaltenders, is very promising. And some young guys here who are also wildcards. And the F tier are basically guys who, some of them are not clear if they are even going to continue their careers, like Craig Anderson and Ryan Miller. And the others, they will most likely be waiver wire pickups throughout the season. So some of them will not be in the NHL. And just like F tier. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and we're almost done with the off season. I'm just really holding up and waiting on some official word from the NHL on their schedule. But basically, I will be in contact with you as early as today to talk about our auction dates. And for now, what my suggestion would be is to start it on Boxing Day, as I think it's a fitting day to start, as it's usually a sport field, event field day in the sport world, especially the British part of it, of the world. So I assume in Canada are also influenced by this. I don't know about the States. So, but anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll be in touch, and hopefully we'll get some back to regular action soon. So, bye bye.